You are listening to Castles and Cryptids, where the castles are haunted and the cryptids are cryptic as fuck. I'm Kelsey.
I'm Alana. And you have reached episode 5 of
Yeah.
Castles and Cryptids. And we're just happy we've made it this far.
Yeah. Congratulations.
So we've heard, the listener, singular. No, I'm just kidding. I stole that from Smartless with Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes. And they're always like, we just lost our
Yeah.
listener, guys.
And if you
But
if you don't understand that
but
reference, then you clearly aren't part of our Patreon yet, and you should join so you would understand what our listener is.
oh, did we talk about that when we recorded
Yeah,
that?
we
I kind of
did.
forgot. Because we talked about a lot. That was a
Yeah.
long ass Patreon
We
episode. It
haven't
was really
edited
good.
yet. So we don't know how long it's going to be after it's edited. But before it's edited, it's 4 hours long.
Yeah.
Let's just say there was a lot of tangents. A lot.
Yeah. The other thing that remember I told you when we were recording that one that I had a tidbit about I learned after episode 2, our first true crime, and you said tell me when we do episode 5.
Vaguely.
Okay, well, so my brother Daniel, he said, "Oh, good job on your episode." He did really
Yeah.
like it. I think I told you that. But then he also said about my case, the Monster de Miramichi, that his friend, he's like, "Remember my friend name rhymes with flat?" And I was like, "I don't know, I guess." And he was like, "Yeah, well, he was, let me get this right. He was Scott Curtis's
Oh,
nephew."
wow.
So at the beginning, when Alan Legier was arrested with the first two guys, Scott Curtis and Todd Matchett, like my brother knew Scott Curtis's nephew, I guess, and I was like, really? I have a tangential connection to the case I
Yeah.
just covered. Okay, cool.
Wow.
Thanks,
That's
bro.
cool.
I was like, I did not. It's cool because like I'll listen to I keep listening, or sorry, my siblings will like listen to the episodes and then they'll remind me of something like he was also like, oh yeah, I listened to he just listened to You Cursed and with the dolls, and then he's like, oh, I laughed when you talked about how mom buys paintings and stuff from like auctions, and he's like, remember that one that looks like it's like a painting of a doll? And I'm like, yeah, the little cute doll. I usually sleep in the room with the
It's
painting of
totally
the doll.
cursed.
She looks real friendly.
And too, because she got it, you said from, an auction, it's definitely cursed.
Usually like an auction or like antiquing, like secondhand
As long
shops,
as,
whatever.
as
She
long as
loves a
it's
good
not an
auction.
estate sale directly.
It feels like a good present.
If it may or may not be cursed.
Yeah. The only thing I ever get when I go to her house is allergies, and I think that's just like I don't know if dust. My mom's clean. I don't think it's dust, but it's something. It's like it's a different atmosphere, literally. Like it's so much more humid there, and that's where I grew up, but I'm not as used to it now that I live in the
Yeah,
prairies.
different like plants and
I don't know.
stuff and different pollens or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
This week
Sorry,
is
go ahead.
witches. Woo! Witchy witches. Which witch is which?
Oh, because I was gonna say, yeah, I hear you, listener, and I actually did hear from my sister that someone was like, "Are there going to be castles and cryptids? There needs
Yeah,
to be more castles."
that's coming
So I feel
soon.
like we're trying to get to some of that. Yes, we'll be touching on some castles soon, and I think witches are kind of our first foray into the more supernatural beings, if not quite
Yeah,
cryptid. But yeah. So, all right, I have a
yeah.
beginning for us because
And I
I
have an end because we're
did
going
like
chronologically.
yeah. Sorry, I couldn't just spit out a sentence that made any sense about that. I'm like, I got some old shit about witches, all right? And I also have some notable witches in history, like pop culture and,
That's
the
cool.
written word. So, yeah, to kind of give us some background. So, let's start off with a quote I got. Oh shit, which one was this from? I have a couple of sources. I'm so sorry. I believe this is from because I referenced there was a list on HuffPost about witches in literature, especially like good feminine examples of witches,
Oh,
like
okay.
strong female witches. I believe we always put our sources on our website, but I believe that's where I got this quote from. I'm so sorry. But it's just how it's saying, quote, historians have noted that those accused of witchcraft were predominantly women, especially women who didn't adhere to
Yeah, they
societal
were.
convention. So, for example, those who are, for example, free thinking or older or
How dare you
unmarried.
be unwed?
Imagine. It's treacherous being a woman. I don't know if I'd want to go back in time, much as I love the idea
Yeah,
of time
no. I want to
travel.
go to the future. The future can't be
Uh,
worse. I guess it could, but I would like to hold out hope that the future wouldn't be worse. So,
right? Yeah, I'm sure it'll be
yeah.
different. Worse in some ways and better in
Yeah,
others.
different
We'll have different
problems.
problems. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think about it because, like, say I'm reading like Outlander, and then I'm like, would I want to go back 200 years in the past? Like, not that most things would bother me, but then I'm like, how could you, like, knowing what TV is, give
Yeah.
up TV?
How would
Things
you give
like
up that
that.
Netflix?
Netflix, hot baths, London fogs. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, back to my witches. The three witches from Macbeth, they were on the list of the notable witches,
For sure.
female
Yeah.
witches in history, because they're obviously one of the first written about. Yeah. And I like Shakespeare's little lines about them, and I like how they repurpose them in like Harry Potter when they do the little song, "Something wicked this way comes," and they make it a whole like their whole choir is singing it.
Oh, okay. I don't
It's
remember
cute.
that from Harry Potter.
Oh, that's the choir, and they're going like it's like a big harmony, so I can't really do it, but they're all just doing double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron. And then it goes, something wicked this way comes. And it's like the straight
Oh, okay.
lines from like
Funny.
Shakespeare, but I don't know. When they do the whole choir, it's obviously way better than what I just friggin'. Anyway, so that one's cool. Oh yeah, because the lines are double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, and then by the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way come. So the next one on their list was Elphaba from Wicked. I think I'm saying that right, but I haven't seen Wicked, either the play or read this book, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch
Oh,
of the West by
Beelzebub?
Gregory Maguire. I think it's the her name is looks like it said
Oh,
Elphaba, Elphaba, and it's the Wicked Witch of the West. So
yeah,
the
I've
one from
seen the
like the
movie
Wizard of Oz, I
posters. I
guess.
never really got
I
the
don't know.
whole Wicked play thing, though.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
she's the Wicked Witch of the West, but then that's on the list too. So I don't know. I don't know Wicked very well. I'm very sorry. I'm butchering it. I will have to see it if it's on Disney
Probably
Plus.
one day.
Um, yeah, like a lot of like I think Hamilton's on there because I was watching Sound of Music and then it obviously suggested me all the other
I
musicals that I
During
might
the
want
first
to
lockdown,
peruse
I
after that.
watched Hamilton, and I actually really liked it. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's like
well,
4 hours long
musicals
though.
can be awesome. Yeah, so
Yeah, but
Sound
it
of
was
Music's
really
pretty fucking
good.
long too, and I
If
fucking love that.
anybody has like watched it slash listened to it, my favorite is the "You'll Never Be Satisfied" song. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, because they do
Heard
like
people talk about it from my.
they do like a whole scene and then it like cuts to and it's like a solo.
Hmm.
So like everybody's like frozen and it's at the wedding of like Hamilton. And then so she's like doing a toast. So they do the toast and it like stops and like you hear like broop, and like everything rewinds and like all the actors on stage do all of the motions they just did for like probably a full 30 seconds, like the last 30 seconds. They do all of it in reverse and then they like go to a different point
Oh
and then they
wow.
show like seven other scenes that they've covered through the beginning of the play, but they cover it from her point of view and how she was feeling, which you never knew and stuff. So over the span of 3 minutes,
Oh,
they reverse
cute.
the entire play and then re-reverse it back to that point again as she's finishing the toast, like it never happened. So it was like a flashback. Yeah, it's amazing.
But on
Like,
stage. Holy shit.
yeah, even without context, like it's amazing.
I mean, it obviously was such a smash success that, like, I know I've heard of a lot of the names of the songs, and I know who
Mhm.
Lin-Manuel Miranda is, and didn't he work with The Rock in a movie? I definitely like I know sort of all around it, but I still haven't
Yeah,
seen it, so I
it's
know it's
pretty
that's my
good.
bad. I'm
Like,
missing it.
I'm normally not one to enjoy plays or
Uh,
anything, but yeah, it was good. It was funny. It had a lot of like relatable humor where you could tell it wasn't like exactly historically accurate about like dialogue and like what they're doing because they had like a historical debate with Hamilton and some other people and they had it like it was a rap battle including like a mic drop at the end like
that's cool because it's like it reimagines something that makes it super more
absolutely.
palatable
Yeah, it
for
was really good.
modern people.
Yeah.
Relatable.
Yeah.
But we digress. So there's Circe, that's Circe, and this one's
Game
from
of
the
Thrones.
Odyssey by Homer, not from
I was gonna
the
say.
King's Landing, exactly. But I believe she's
Oh,
the inspiration, however. He was described as a, quote, bit of a predator, unquote. Bewitching with her beauty, she cursed men into animals and other fun
interesting.
things. Yeah, I think I've seen a book about that I really meant to read. Like maybe it was at the chapters, the staff picks,
Yeah.
and I was like, I should read that, but I haven't yet. So next is Strega Nona by Tommy de Paola. Roughly translated, it means grandma witch in Italian. There was some note about it. Nona is her actual name or something. I don't know. I think Nona means grandma. That's the part that sounds like grandma to me, but I don't speak Italian. I apologize. So she's fun though. She cures villagers, and all the people in the village of ailments and illnesses. She feeds herself out of an endless pasta pot. However, her unhelpful servant ends up unleashing oceans of spaghetti on the town, so she makes him eat it all to clean
Okay,
up
that
the
she just
problem.
sounds strange. Oceans of spaghetti and curing people.
Ocean's 14, Oceans of
Is that one
Spaghetti.
also starring Sandra Bullock and Rihanna?
Oh. And Dragonona is George Clooney's like nanny that helps him with his two kids in this little town that he lives in Italy because he does like
Yeah.
I think we've got something here. Um oh, next witch of note on this list is Serafina Pekkala from His Dark Materials, which I haven't read, so I'm sorry if I said that wrong. She does sound like Elsa, sort of, lives super long, cold doesn't really bother her.
That's another tie-in to
One sec.
Lin-Manuel Miranda because he is an actor on His Dark Materials. Yeah.
It's a show? Um, It sounds like
Yeah,
a, you know, like a
it was
Shadowhunter book or
like
something.
put off as like the next Game of Thrones or something when it start was planning to come out, and then I don't know, I watched like half the first episode and couldn't get into it. Yeah,
Hmm.
not
Didn't get
from
off
what
the
I
ground.
like watching, really like
Okay.
clued into. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really judge or not. Hermione Granger, that is, you know, one that
Yeah.
almost goes without saying, but Harry Potter, super smart. Cool witch. And then we have Mrs. Witch from A Wrinkle in Time, and not technically a witch, but an otherworldly figure who sometimes chooses to appear as a witch. And it's spelled
WYCH?
slightly differently. So, you know, no, more like the Witch Peanut
Oh,
Gallery.
okay.
WHICH. Wait, yeah, WHICH.
Yeah.
Like,
All right.
which way do you spell it? Sorry, that took me a minute. Okay, and then there's Morwen from the Enchanted Forest Chronicles by Patricia C. Reed. And I wasn't familiar with her either, but I got from the article that she refused to only own one cat as a familiar, fills her house with cats, and makes a potion to understand her cat's thoughts.
Okay.
No word on whether she can extend this to dogs, because that's what I'd want to know. What the hell my dog's
Yeah.
meaning when he says,
Yeah, some pretty
oh,
sad little oh sounds.
yeah. And other times where you're like, wow, you're really telling me
Yeah.
something,
He's
like
got a
with an
loud
exclamation point.
bark. Like,
Yeah, some power behind it. And then like they're kind of like Akitas are kind of like Huskies are in the way that they kind of
yeah.
do that more talking, where they're not barking, they're like, you're like, you are
Yeah.
saying something. I'm just
You
not
are
sure what it
speaking in
is.
paragraphs.
Oh man. All right. So
Yep.
there's The White Witch from the Chronicles of Narnia. I have read those. Yeah. They're good books. And then they made a couple of
Yeah.
okay movies. Yeah. Um, so her name was Jadis, when she wasn't just called the White Witch. She's the one who made it endless winter in Narnia, but never Christmas,
Winter is
never
coming.
Christmas. And
Just like Game of
then
Thrones. It'll
saying,
be 1,000 years of winter.
oh God, sounds like COVID. Always winter, never Christmas, never allowed to go outside,
But we don't get any Turkish
allowed to have
delights.
fun. All right. And then there's The Witches from The Witches by Roald
Yeah.
Dahl. That just got redone too. I haven't seen the new version.
I love her.
With Annie Hathaway.
I've loved her since like Ella
Yeah,
Enchanted.
she's really good.
So
Um,
it was like one of the first movies I actually remember watching in theaters
oh
was Ella
yeah,
Enchanted. So yeah.
yeah. It seems to be almost most
Oh
known for the
yeah.
Devil Wears
Well, of
Prada. That one gets
course, it's
referenced a
her
lot.
and Meryl Streep, and
Yeah.
I can't I can't remember the
She got
other
to play a
girl's
fun.
name.
Yeah, sorry.
Ah, yes, Emily Blunt. Why could I?
Emily Blunt's in
Yeah,
it. Emily Blunt. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Because she looks different because her hair is like red. So she looks very different. And she got to play a really fun role in the Ocean's 8, I thought. I thought she got
yeah. I
to
did not.
kind of have some
Spoiler
fun with
alert.
that character.
Did not see it coming that she knew about. They had told her about it the whole time, so the other girls are like freaking out, trying to be like all this stuff, and then at the end,
Right, because I don't think it was like the whole time that because they were playing on her at
yeah.
first and like, oh yeah, she's gonna have the
Well, it was
necklace
pretty
on, but then by the end of
quickly.
it she catches on to
Yeah,
them. And
it was pretty
but you're
quickly
right, she
that
was in
she
it for
was
a
like
while.
told
With that?
about it because she figured it out something weird was going on. and she asked one of the girls, and then the girl that she asked, I can't remember who, like didn't let on that they had told her. So like only like two people um knew. Yeah.
Sandra Bullock. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. And they
And she's
reveal
like,
it
well,
not
it
till
seems
like
funner
the
than joining a
end of the
book club.
movie.
And it was just like, oh God. Like, yeah.
Oh, I feel
We
attacked. We had a
barely
fun
talked
book
about the
club, man.
books. We just got together, ate appetizers, drank a bunch of wine.
Exactly.
Yeah. Talked about that.
It's the best kind of book club.
Yeah.
We'd be like, I hate the character or not, and move on. I hate the ending, whatever. Oh, sorry. Okay. Next is Agnes Nutter from Good Omens,
Did you ever watch
the
that
nice and
show?
accurate prophecies of Agnes Nutter,
Oh,
Witch. Nope,
I
by
told you
Neil
100
Gaiman
times
and
to
Terry
watch that
Pratchett. This is the
show.
book.
I love it. That's amazing.
I
Well,
know,
Neil,
I love the
Neil Gaiman
actors. I
was
know
an
I need
executive
to. I know, I
producer
know,
of
I
it, and
know.
he like helped write the scripts for the episodes.
Is it, to be fair, I think I didn't
I think
have
so, yeah.
Prime when it first came out or somewhere where I could watch it. I feel
Yeah,
like that might have been an issue because I know I really, really wanted to.
it's good.
And then, yeah, for whatever reason. Anyway. Okay, so I can't really, well, all I have on this
Oh,
one,
okay.
and you can correct me if I'm wrong, then it's like, because they just said she was a spin on like the prophetess Cassandra, who had been cursed with accurate predictions that no one believed. And this Agnes Nutter, I don't
She's
know.
like
I just have in bracket.
um
Yeah,
making all
sorry.
these prophecies and stuff, and she writes like in her book that you just said, and then um she gets accused of like being a witch, and they show up to her door and she's like, you're half an hour late and stuff. And so they so she goes to the town square and they burn her
Oh,
for
I
being a
like
witch, and she
that.
just takes it because she knew it was going to happen. But she had written down all of the prophecies from like that point all the way up until the world was supposed to end, so that her ancestors could like prevent the end of the world. But it also had predictions in there to make them a whole lot of money. So, but her predictions are all like written, quote unquote,
Holy
me in
shit.
an earlier episode, like old timey, which I'm sure there'll be tons of in this episode. Um, so, like, there's one that says, like, in the year whatever, there will be an apple that will come about in a garage, and this apple shall be an apple that cannot be eaten, but it'll be found in every home and stuff. Well, like, and you should invest, and you should invest in it. And she had written it
Oh my
like
God.
300 years earlier. Well, her ancestors heard about a company called Apple, so they invested into it and became millionaires. Stuff like that.
Holy shit. It took me a really long time to figure out. I was like, what do you
Yeah.
mean an apple everybody
So
will
like
have
all
in
these
their
prophecies,
home?
her like
Oh my
ancestors had
God.
spent like
Okay.
hundreds of years like decoding all of these and like crossing out which ones and like writing the date of like when they came true and like what they were in reference to. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Prophecies are so cool. Okay, so that's kind of, that makes sense because I had written here from what I had read about her on the article. Like you
Yeah.
said, accurately predicted her own death by burning at the stake. And then I had written and filled her clothes with explosives that
Yeah.
killed her
I didn't want to
executioners. And I
spoil
was like,
that part,
badass.
but
What the fuck?
yeah, she
Oh,
fills her skirt with nails
okay.
and
Right down
gunpowder.
on the website.
And then when they take her to the stake, she's like, everybody gather round, come
An
closer,
nail
like
bomb.
everything. And then when they burn her, she like literally explodes.
Oh, she
Yeah.
becomes a human nail bomb. That's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna watch it. Or, yeah, I didn't realize it was like a,
Yeah.
yeah, a spoiler. I was just like writing down. I'm like, oh, this
Yeah,
sounds
it
cool.
has like witches throughout. Like one
Oh,
of her
sweet.
ancestors and everything
Oh
is
my
a
God.
character in the show. And then one of the witch hunters or whatever is like there's a couple witch hunters in like modern time that are in the show, and one of them's like a descendant of the witch hunter that accused Agnes Nutter of being a witch, but he doesn't know he's the descendant of the witch hunter. Yeah, and it's like,
Oh, but
what
she
is it?
does.
His name is
Holy
Witch
shit.
Hunter. Thou shalt not commit adultery. That's his name. Yeah. So like, that was the witch hunter that
What?
accused Agnes Nutter of being a witch. Was thou shalt not commit adultery. That was his name. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous show.
Oh, hot.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, now all I have is honorable mentions. These were ones I thought
Okay.
were pretty significant over the years. Samantha from
Okay.
the Bewitched show. So obviously that was pretty popular in the, I want to say
Yeah, and
60s.
the
I'm
'90s, I think
not
that's
sure.
when they redid it with Will
Um,
Ferrell or whatever. Back when Will Ferrell was a romantic
oh
comedy
yeah,
lead.
Nicole Kidman. Oh yeah, there's a movie.
I liked him.
Yeah, he's not, he's hilarious, but maybe not a leading handsome, love interest men.
Yeah.
Maybe those days are a little over. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. We love you,
Damn
Will.
it.
He'll never do our podcast now.
We just lost Will
Damn
Ferrell as a listener.
it. So, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. We,
Yeah,
we might as well just stop now. He was our only one. Besides my family. No, I'm just kidding. Actually,
that's cool.
I think we have a listener from a new state last time I looked. Sorry, I get really excited about that kind of stuff. We have like Washington, Michigan, Florida, um,
That's cool.
what is it?
Because we
Texas and
don't know
Virginia.
any of those people.
Exactly. Thank you, listeners.
Yeah.
Whether you're one or two from each place, I don't know, but I love it. All right. So Sabrina the Teenage Witch, yeah, I used to read about
Yeah.
her. Like I used to read Archie comics. I didn't like stuff with a lot of killing, okay? And The Witches
No.
of Eastwick. Have you seen that movie? It's pretty old. It's from like the 80s, I think. And I love it. I love it because I really love
Oh, I think
Cher
the
and
only
she's
one
in
I've
it, and I've
seen
seen
that
a lot
she
of the
did
movies
was the
she's done.
mermaid one.
So,
Yeah,
mm,
I think that's it.
Flash? I don't know. I can't remember. I thought I knew all the ones
Yeah.
she was in. I didn't remember if she was. Anyway, I'm not talking about that one. This one's their witches. There's her and with this one it's Cher and Michelle Pfeiffer, as I like to say, and Susan Sarandon, and they are like scorned by Jack Nicholas or something. So they're like basically playing with him and kind of torturing him and
That sounds great.
playing magic tricks on him the whole movie. So it's cool. I know. It's fun. I really liked it. Okay. Then there's The Witch, the
Yes.
2015 film with Anya
Yeah.
Taylor-Joy. That one was pretty good. It wasn't
No.
maybe what I expected. It's
I love
good.
her.
Yes, she's excellent. She's
Yeah, it
excellent.
was for me. It was
Yeah, I think
either
that's one of the
that
first things I
or
saw her.
Thoroughbreds. I
Um,
saw her in.
oh, I think
Yeah,
I wanted to see
fucking
that.
messed
Was that the
up.
one where they're like sociopath?
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Which is kind of like Heather's, maybe, which is
Okay.
one that I know my
Yeah, this is
sister is a
more
real big
like
fan of.
detached kind of thing. Like they're both like
Oh,
emotionally detached from everything, and they're just like, we're friends, and I'm gonna teach you how to fake cry
wow.
like on command. And then
Yeah.
they're like, let's commit murder. Like, yeah, he is. It was
Is Anton Yelchin in that
that was
too?
the movie he was
I
filming,
really,
and he had pretty
yeah.
much just finished his scenes when he passed away. Yeah, because they were still editing the movie and
That
stuff
is
when he
so
died.
sad.
So I think from what I can remember, that was the last movie he was filming. It wasn't the last one of his that
Amazing.
was released, but it was the last one he was filming.
I think so. That sounds right. But yeah, I really loved
Yeah.
him. I felt like he was taken way too soon. I was like, man, he was like what, 27? Part of that, like, rock
Yeah,
stars
his
usually
like
die at that age, and his was
parking
just a
brake or
freak
whatever on his
accident.
vehicle
But
malfunctioned and his vehicle was parked on an incline or something and it ran him over.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked him. I
Yeah, it
liked him in the
basically
Star Trek
crushed him.
reboots
So
and
sad.
Fright Night.
Oh, oh, rip.
I
Hey,
know.
I'm sorry. Well, I gotta get through this. All right. So what did I say? The Witch with Anya Taylor-Joy. The Craft. We recently watched both
Oh,
the
okay.
old and then watched the new one version of that. I can't remember if I did watch this or not. Probably yes. The Last Witch Hunter with Vin Diesel. I
No.
don't think it was that big of a box office success of his. Yeah. Um, the next one though, yes, I have seen and read A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. So it's a trilogy, and then it's now a series on Amazon
Yeah,
Prime.
I keep seeing stuff
And I
about
just
it.
got done season 2. Yeah, I think it's really cool, and I think a lot of people that like I'm a big fan of like Outlander, and I like this one a lot too. And there's some like similarities in the writing and the strong female characters, and
Oh, okay.
maybe there's a bit of time traveling in both of them, stuff like that. So I really like it. Um, well, and definitely they kind of approach witches, vampires, demons a little differently. Like they get into some modern like biology where they're trying to study the different creatures as they call it. So I thought that was a cool
Yeah, they're
angle that I
normally
hadn't
not about like
really
studying them.
seen before like that much. No, and for them they have like I say demons, but they're more like say like a
Oh,
compared to like an autistic person that's really smart, like a savant. Like yeah, they're like say they're like really really talented, but they like kind of have ADHD, like they're kind of erratic personalities. They're not like demons like fallen angels or yeah, it's a totally kind of different spin, and
good.
it's not like sparkly vampires. They're like, no, I don't fucking sparkle. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told that
I'm
to Pat
over
because I was like,
Twilight.
you'd
I'm
appreciate
done.
that part.
I used to be obsessed with
Yeah.
it. It was so 2008. Move on, people.
Yeah, move over. Okay. And then there was also The Covenant. That was a witch movie that I had to ask Pat if we'd
Yeah,
seen because I was like, Sebastian Stan, like Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. Apparently
I
he's
don't
in
think
it.
I've seen
It's
it.
from 2006, though. I don't remember watching it, but might have to rewatch. Yeah, these are just kind of the ones that came up when I was like, I was already looking at like some witch movies, but then some were from my head. I don't know. So some of them I hadn't thought of though in a while. Like Practical Magic. I don't know if I've actually seen that, but I know
I
it's famous.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
watched that
Don't at me. With
last
Sandra
year
Bullock,
before
correct?
Halloween because I tried to make a list of a bunch of like Halloween movies I hadn't seen. So I watched that. It was actually really good. I liked it. Yeah,
Oh.
it was nice. It was fun. It was like
Oh,
a
okay.
light
I'll give
kind
it a
of like
shot.
movie. Yeah. Kind of like a Bewitched thing. It was a
Okay, that's the
similar
impression I
type
kind of
thing.
got from the cover and stuff. Unlike the next one on my
Yeah.
list, which I didn't
Yeah.
remember had witchcraft, Hereditary. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I barely like got through
Yeah,
it.
I wasn't expecting for when the kid's fucking like dying from anaphylactic shock. Spoiler alert! And then she like gets her head
See,
lopped off when she
anytime
puts her head
somebody
out the
puts
window.
their head
That
out a
fucking was like,
window
okay,
in a
I'm
movie,
shook.
I immediately think something bad's gonna happen because I'm like, this isn't a rom-com. Like, I literally didn't flinch.
Oh no, Kelsey
Like,
was just stoically like, yeah, this is gonna happen.
yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes you're so expressionless. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah, I was like sitting
robot.
there and then I was like, that was terrible CGI. That was like my response to it.
Oh.
I don't know. She was
I
annoying.
was like, they didn't just fucking do that.
God.
Ugh. Oh, this reminds me when we were in book club, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, the main character," and then like sometimes like the rest of you guys would be like, "He was fucking stupid. He was a real idiot or whatever," and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're right. She did kind of do some questionable things."
Couple
Count
of
like
books that
everybody
were
else.
my favorites from book club and stuff that nobody else really enjoyed that I really liked. So,
Yeah, that's true. And then I have the Blair Witch Project. Can't go anywhere without at least mentioning that. That was obviously
yeah.
iconic in that it was different. It was like one of the first
Hmm.
found footage style
It's like its
movies.
own
Like
genre of
its
horror
niche
movie
thing.
now. Hmm.
And exactly, yeah. Which can be quite terrifying
Yeah.
because you can only see what, they can
Yeah. One of
see,
my
and
favorite, it's
sometimes
not
not
really
very
a
much.
horror movie, it's more of like a thriller.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I ever told you about it. It's called I See You. It's like told in like three parts, where like the
That
first
sounds
part is
very
a family
familiar.
that's being like
What's the
terrorized
plot?
and everything, and like as a side plot there's like a serial killer in town that suddenly like or is like active, and the dad is like a police investigator, so he's investigating this, and it kind of like ties in. And then the second half you find out um like the second, or not the second half, the second like part of the three kind of parts that I view the movie as shows the first part from a different perspective that's totally not related to like the family that's being terrorized. It's like told from a different point of view. And then the third part kind of, because the first part and the second part end at the exact same spot.
Okay.
So like they're kind of told simultaneously, but they tell it as like a first act because it really should be told that way. And then the second act definitely has to be told that way. And then the third act picks up, and now it's everybody's point of view. And you're just like, oh my God, I did not see that coming. There's like more than one like full 100% like plot twist and stuff in it. Like if you actually go, I was surprised because I forgot the plot of the movie,
Hmm.
and I looked up the trailer on YouTube because I was like, I don't even remember what this movie was about. And all of the comments on it were like, this is actually one of the best like thriller movies I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
there wasn't a single comment being like, this movie was boring or it was stupid. Like, you know how like people, like, especially in YouTube comments, like shit on movies all the time. This had like none of that. Like, not a single comment. And every comment was like, you have to go watch
Sure.
this right now. Like, do
Yeah.
yourself a favor, go watch this right now. Like,
Wow. Yeah, that's like I heard was listening to something earlier and they said that the show that ended up getting canceled by like the Stars Network, I think, because that's what they were talking about anyway, was the Stars Network.
yeah,
They said it had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and yet they canceled it. And I was like, oh, some weird shit happens. I don't remember if I've
yeah,
seen that. I'll have to look in our movie collection here because Pat's such a movie buff and
yeah,
you are a huge movie buff. And I get the same way where I'm like, have I seen this
yeah.
before?
It's a good one. You guys, I
Yeah,
think,
and you
would
have to
both
like
really
double
like
check.
it
Yeah,
because it
that's
actually, like,
funny.
it ends up being pretty simple, like, kind of thing.
Okay.
It's not like a horror movie. It's not like necessarily jump scares or anything, but it's a good, like, just what the fuck is going on? Like, just what? Like, really?
Hmm. Okay, now I'm
Okay.
thinking of one that. All right. Okay. No, I don't know
Yeah,
if
it's
I've seen
good.
it.
I
I
like
may
the cover
have.
of the movie too.
I will
That's
let you
why I
know.
watched it, is because of the
I'm
movie
really
cover.
intrigued, though.
That's all it takes.
Of course. This is how you had to pick movies back in the day. You had to judge it by the cover and the back flap. I watched a documentary on Blockbuster recently.
Yeah.
There's still one left open in the world. It's in like Bend, Oregon, and it was a neat documentary. I was like, oh yeah, like they talked about it was a whole thing. You went out for the night. Everybody had to try and agree on one, or maybe you got to pick one or two, and
Yeah,
yeah,
my
like
parents like
it
always
was a
took me and
whole
my brother like
experience.
once a week to go,
And then
and
there
we
was
each got to pick like two
yeah, sorry.
movies for the week.
Um, there was a neat part about it though, where it was like they were talking about how it's decline and stuff like that of the video rental world. And then at one point, I believe, uh, what is it? They were they were offered Blockbuster was offered to buy Netflix for
Oh,
like
I
50
think I
million, and they
remember
were
that,
like,
yeah.
"Nah, it's not going to go anywhere."
But you know
The
why
guy,
Netflix was made, right?
poor guy.
Yeah, it was a guy that had an overdue fee at Blockbuster and he refused to pay it and he kept
Why?
getting mad and that they wouldn't give him any movies because he had an overdue fee.
Okay, yes. I think
Yeah,
maybe
because
they did talk about
Netflix,
that. I was just like, wait, why
when
wasn't
Netflix
they?
was first
No,
starting,
yeah,
they let
that's
you do
too
movie
funny. Like,
rentals.
that's
So you could,
to the
instead
man.
of like if you didn't have a computer, you could contact Netflix and give them your mailing address and they'd mail you a copy of the movie for like a month and then they'd send you a return thing to return it back to them. They still do this. It's very rare, but
Mhm. Yes, I was just gonna say because literally they had the content picker guy for
yeah,
Netflix on the Smart List show that I was talking about at the beginning of the episode. And like a few people still do the DVDs. They obviously live in places where
yeah,
the internet, the broadband
yeah.
is, not good, or they're seniors or whatever. All right. So my last one on significant in pop culture throughout history is one of the more recent ones to kind of resurge onto the scene. So I've got a little bit of a shallow dive on Miss
No, but didn't
Agatha
we just talk about
Harkness.
her
Do
earlier?
you know who that is?
No, but wasn't,
No, we talked about
no, there
Agatha
was a,
Nutter.
who was
We
the
talked
one
about
author of one of the
Agatha
books you said was Harkness?
Deborah Harkness. Yes, it's interesting that she wrote a book about witches, Deborah Harkness, when her name comes up in a lot of
Yeah.
witchy stuff. It comes up like several times in
I
my
just
segment
I
alone,
just want to say though too,
starting here with
the
this
witch from
witch,
Hansel and Gretel.
Agatha Harkness, who's fictional.
Yeah. Or the new
Yeah.
movie Gretel and Hansel.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I missed that one.
It was good. Oh, it was like it was
I don't
like
think I've
if you
seen
took a
that.
hipster and was like, we're gonna
Okay.
make a sort
It's on
of
Pat's watch list.
like thriller
Okay.
movie about Hansel and Gretel. We're gonna name it Gretel and Hansel, but we're gonna make everything look really pretty. Cinematography will get me in a movie. Like I
Oh,
will
you love
watch a
your
shit
good
movie with
cinematography.
subtitles of a language I don't understand just because two scenes of it look so pretty, and I saw a screenshot online. No,
Whereas I'll just watch a movie and I'll be like, oh, that
I
was
love
kind of
it.
a cool shot. And that's like
Okay,
the most I think about
give me your shallow dive.
cinematography most of the time. Agatha Harkness. Those of you who watched
Okay,
WandaVision recently know that she's
that's why her
from
name
Marvel
was familiar.
Comics. At least she's here. Hmm. So, yeah, along with, yeah, that whole Deborah Harkness author too. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, yes, she was in the original Marvel Comics, and then she was recently brought to life on screen, but played by Catherine Hahn, who I love and did an amazing job. She was,
Yeah.
oh, just like so creepy by the time she got into her whole witchy self. It was awesome. Okay, so from her online Marvel history, I got the following. Agatha Harkness was old enough to remember 500 years before Atlantis sank to the bottom of the sea. Now, this will be like it's a little different than she wasn't like the whole main thing in WandaVision. She was like
Yeah.
Wanda's neighbor, and then it came out later that like no, she's a witch too, but she was hiding that from Wanda. And then yeah, so she kind of taught Wanda a thing or two, but then they had a battle at the end, and then Wanda was like, "Oh, thanks for teaching me that. Now I'm gonna kick your ass," kind of thing, basically. And then thing killed her. Holy shit, I can't remember. It's been a couple weeks now. So, Okay, so Agatha Harkness, old enough to remember 500 years before Atlantis sank to the bottom of the
Wow.
sea, which is reportedly
Yeah.
about 10,500 BC. Yes, how BC works. Just kidding. I'm just teasing. Okay. Back then, she had contact with this cosmic being named Scryer, who had promised her that he would return whenever needed, only to be apparently destroyed. Although Scryer resurrected, Harkness gave him up for dead at the time. So, the Salem witch trials. In the 17th century, Harkness
I
settled
had
into the
to look that
English
up for
colony of
my
Salem,
case
Massachusetts.
multiple
Massachusetts.
times.
He formed,
Massachusetts.
how to say it?
That's great.
I know I might just slip, and
Massachusetts.
sometimes we call it Taxatutsets.
It's
I've
not
heard it
any
called
easier to
that.
say.
Yeah. Uh, I've, I'm not like
Oh my
I've
gosh.
never been there, but I've just heard these things, or I've heard them referred to as mass holes, the people that live there. I don't think this was on TV. Don't at me. All right. So she formed her own coven of witches, hoping to freely practice magic in the New World. In 1692 AD, she and her group were persecuted by the Puritans during what became known as the Salem Witch Trials. She encountered the mutant hero Firestar when Firestar was accidentally sent back in time while fighting the Sphinx. Believing her to be a witch, the Puritans tried to burn Firestar at the stake. She fought back but was saved by Agatha, leading her to safety. So Agatha revealed that she approved of the trials, believing them necessary for the magical people to
Jesus.
grow stronger. She even sent some of her coven to cull the weak. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just not very nice in the comments, or at all, I think. Firestar to join her, but she refused. Firestar begged Agatha to find another option. Sorry. Her pleas did not fall on deaf ears, and Agatha agreed and settled the town of New Salem, secret magical community in what would be known as Colorado. That I took straight from the
Yeah.
Marvel background, and then basically, like, it was long. I was not reading it all, but she basically becomes the most powerful sorceress in this community. She took this man as a husband, name unknown, and they had a son, Nicholas Scratch. And at the end of World War II, she was recruited by U.S. Army Major Alan Dacor to join the Department of the Uncanny and help
Von Hate.
stop the threat of Hilda von Hate. I love that
Very
comic
creative.
name.
Just putting Von.
Von Hate.
Yeah.
It's, it's like an Austin Powers name. It's like
Yes.
oh no, now I what was it? Oh, a lot of vagina. Yes. Okay. She became a nanny and looked after a baby belonging to the Fantastic Four. Okay, so then that's what everyone really wants to know is what happens with her and Scarlet Witch in the actual comic. So eventually, this group called Salem 7 took over the new Salem community again. They captured Agatha and killed her by burning her at the stake. In an ensuing battle between the Scarlet Witch and Salem 7, the entire community's energies were drawn into Vertigo of the Seven, who lost control of them. I don't know what that means. Maybe he can put them in his void. Like, what's your name? Janet? That's a good place. So Wanda managed to capture some of the energy and funnel it away, but the entire town was still decimated. Wanda channeled the remaining energy to set in motion her becoming pregnant with her synthezoid husband's children. That is
Yeah.
kind of not what happened in WandaVision. In WandaVision, she had like imaginary kids with vision from Marvel. Like in her, like she was basically imagining the whole town in WandaVision. She created it out of her chaos magic. So later, Agatha resurfaced, avoiding explanations for her return from the dead. She claimed that Scarlet Witch's children were actually fragments of the soul of Mephisto and wiped Wanda's memory of her
Jeez.
children rather than fight to free the two from Mephisto when he reabsorbed
Yeah.
the two. Oh, comic books. Who comes up with this stuff? No. Later, Agatha resurfaces, declines to say how she came back. Oh, sorry. I guess I kind of said that or they already covered that. She wipes Wanda's minds of her children's memory. That ultimately leads to her demise after Wanda confronts Agatha about her kids. Nick Fury finds Agatha Harkness's body in Scarlet Witch's home, clearly murdered by Wanda, who was her former student. And apparently later she's resurrected again.
Yeah.
So it sounds complicated and almost
Just
like
kill them in new and interesting ways
supernatural. They just
every
keep coming back
season,
from the
and
dead.
they'll just one up each other for the last 10 years of their lives. Yeah. Yeah. I'm your twin. I was in a coma.
Like every good soap opera.
Like,
Loophole. So we're gonna start I watched this cool show on Amazon Prime. Hang on. I'll tell you what it's called. It was it was called Witches, A Century of Murder, and it was on Prime on the Sundance channel. So it was cool. It like focused on all around the UK, which is I guess where all this stuff started way back in the 1500s. So
yeah, it did.
let's go to Scotland in the 1500s and King James the Sixth. So he was actually the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and Henry Stuart.
Oh,
So
okay.
the Stuart line, yeah, I'm familiar with the Stuarts from Outlander because that the Scottish rebellions were fought to keep them on the throne instead of it was like when well we're going to talk about it right now, but because Scotland and England and all that like united, but that wasn't what all the Scots all wanted, right? So then there was some rebellions fought. Um, so actually, fun fact: King James is officially known as King James the Sixth and the First because he was King of Scotland from 24th of July, 1567, and became King of England and Ireland from the union of the Scottish and English crowns on the 24th of March, 1603, until his death in 1625. I think he was like the last king of Scotland before Scotland became part of the UK kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So in 1589, King James's new wife needs to be fetched back to Scotland from her home in Denmark. He had sent ships for her, but each time severe storms caused them to be shipwrecked. He finally went after her himself and was besieged by storms again. In her home country of Denmark, there was a book in the Danish library called the Malleus Maleficarum. It's also known as the Hammer of Witches. Thank you, Wikipedia, for the Hammer of Witches title.
Yeah.
So the book said that witches were very real. The author Heinrich Kramer asserts that they were heretics who made their pact with the devil. Two women were arrested on suspicion of witchcraft in Copenhagen, and they claimed to be responsible for the various storms that had plagued King James on his trip to get his new wife, Anne. They said that Satan wanted him dead. So
Oh,
those two women, I know, rough. No one said why.
yeah. Just cause.
Oh, yeah, we don't like you.
Because he's the first and the sixth. He's the 16th.
He's not yet. This is 1589.
Okay.
Anyway, so they, along with five others, were also executed for the same crime. So my next one, if anybody reads Outlander, they might actually be familiar with the name because there was a woman named Geillis Duncan who appears as a character of a witch in Outlander, Scottish witch and time traveler. But anyway, this person was a real person who was accused of witchcraft by her employer, a man named David Seaton. In November of 1590, he became suspicious of her when he noticed that she would leave at night for unknown reasons. He also thought it very strange how an uneducated woman would suddenly acquire healing knowledge.
By
God forbid
reading.
she learned something.
Yeah, by trying to
Her.
educate herself because you just called her uneducated.
Oh no, exactly. I know I put that in quotes because I know that was someone else's words. Like I found an article in this one too. But anyway, Seaton interrogated her, but she declined to admit to any witchcraft. So what did they do to this poor young woman? They tortured her, of course.
Of course.
Of course. Um, so they used a few different methods, like him and I think his son and some other cronies used thumb screws on her, or as
Oh,
one article called, yeah.
those are actually in Good Omens. They show those. So
Ew.
they were like little tiny handcuffs for your thumbs that it essentially like it was like one whole piece. You just like kind of like put your hands out and they would like attach it to your thumbs. And
Oh,
then
I've seen thumb cuffs. Yeah, I've
yeah,
seen,
but then it has like a little
yeah.
screw that like tightens so you can't wiggle your
Oh,
thumbs in them or something.
oh no. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not good.
Yeah.
Apparently, they were also known by the term pillywinks, which makes them sound a lot less creepy, but
Yeah.
knowing what they are, I don't like it. So, when this didn't produce the desired result, they proceeded to employ another um, tactic they called wrenching. This involves binding the victim's head with rope like wrapped in all directions and then using those ropes to apply pressure. So you could even grab the rope, brace your foot, and they're pulling on the rope and exerting such, sorry, force on the skull that they're basically slowly crushing her skull.
Oh, Jesus.
It was not good. Even the reenactment was like, oh, I don't like this. That looks horrible.
Yeah, these people were creative.
I know. It's like, I think that may have been the problem, is this just gave sadistic people an outlet
Yeah.
to get away with this shit. Yeah. So sadistic and rapey. He ripped her clothes off and searched for a witch's mark.
Yeah.
So it could be a mole or just a birthmark. Anything they could say was a witch's mark.
In Good Omens, they call that a third nipple. The one witch finder runs around and he goes, "How many nipples does she have?"
Oh no, but Krusty from The Simpsons had a third nipple.
Oh gosh,
And my superfluous third nipple.
he's a witch.
But it's both.
You're a wizard, Krusty.
Have you gotten to the Wine and Crime yet, where they get to their catchphrase where they talk about why they say, not a witch?
Yes, I love
Basically,
it.
the story for those that haven't listened to Wine and Crime was just like they were at some, well, it's really funny. I mean, I think you guys listened to them, but like they were at some Halloween type event, and this old lady that really looked like a witch was handing out like candy and the little kids, and they were like going like, not a witch, not a witch. Oh no, I'm just handing out candy, but I'm not a witch.
Not a witch.
I don't know. It's funny. It was funnier, but
I
yeah.
was thinking about that multiple times when I was researching my case. Not a witch. Yeah.
Not a witch. You do you.
Yeah.
All right. Be proud to be a witch. All right. So, looking for a witch's mark, which if it can be a mole or a birthmark, well then hello, I would definitely be in trouble. I have a mole on my cheek.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to look far.
They wouldn't have to rip your clothes off to find it.
No, but if they did, they would find even more.
Yeah, I have quite a few
Anyway.
moles. Like, I think almost everybody does.
Freckles happen. Exactly. It's the sun. Okay, so of course they found something. In her case, it could have even been like it was like something on her throat, so it could have even been like a hickey or something. They're not sure. So anyway, so for Geillis Duncan, when they find that after they're strip searching her and all this other thing, that's what finally breaks her, and she admits to witchcraft slash fraternizing with the devil. No one quite knows why this was the final straw. She was thrown into prison and soon started naming names of other quote unquote witches. She named 8 people, I think they were all women, who in turn named more, and it snowballed until over 100 people were accused. These trials became known as the North Berwick Witch Trials. Some of the people she named, who were named as witches, included Agnes Simpson, an elderly woman from Netherkeith, who was also skilled in the healing arts, and a guy who goes by the name Dr. Fian, who was a school teacher from Preston Pans. Some claim Agnes was what?
Preston Pans?
Yeah, that's in Scotland because I've heard that one in Outlander. There was a battle there. It's a
Preston
cute name.
Pans. Okay. Now they're just pointing at stuff, being like, what is that? That's Preston Pans. Okay, let's name a city after that.
Well, it's Preston.
Preston. Okay.
Yeah.
Not pressed in pans.
But yeah. But they do have a whole lot of like Stratford upon Avon, don't they?
Yeah.
And we do here in Canada because I think we have a Stratford upon Avon in Ontario that we stole from England. Because, English,
Came here.
like British and French settlers are what made our country. Yay!
Yeah.
We were just the ones that weren't like all caught up for independence like those ones in the South. We were like, nah, we'll stay under Britons.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not real good at that. They're just at the Revolutionary War in Outlander. I'll let you know if they get to how Canada was formed. Then I'll know it a lot better.
Okay.
Just kidding. They teach us pretty well in Canada, actually, about other countries and stuff.
I don't. I didn't remember anything. No, the only
No,
thing I was ever
I thought,
interested in was we learned about the Aztecs, and that's all I ever cared about.
yeah, they're cool. I like European history, but I find like as far as we learn more American geography than say Americans get taught Canadian geography and things like that.
Oh,
I don't
for
know.
sure, yeah.
hmm So, in a confession from Geillis Duncan dated from 15th December 1590, she spoke of a coven that met in Edinburgh, to conspire to kill King James. She herself would only admit to casting one spell, a spell placed upon the hat of the Laird of Belnard. A laird is like a lord.
Oh, okay.
She only bewitched the hat. That was all she would admit to.
And that was the sporting
She was
hat for Harry Potter.
exactly. She was convicted of witchcraft. She and Bessie Thompson, one of the first batch of witches she named, were taken to Castle Hill in Edinburgh to be executed. Both women recanted their accusations against the two most prominent accused figures, two of the most quote unquote well known witches that were wealthy that had been accused. They were like, no, we didn't mean it about them. We swear. When asked why they recanted, they said that David Seaton, his son, and his other cronies forced them to accuse those women. Kind of the same way he forced you to confess through all the torturing.
Yeah.
So they were clearly killed, yet David faced no repercussions for his illegal use of torture on Geillis. Even though his search for Geillis's witch's mark was described as tantamount to rape, because she was stripped and shaved and forcefully searched. Yeah, nothing happened of it
Of course not.
for him. Yeah. Agnes Simpson, the strongest witch in Edinburgh, was brought before the king to answer for her supposed role in the plot to kill him. She had confessed to the plot, but then claimed the confessions had been beaten out of her. They didn't know what to make of that and believe, so she repeated some pillow talk that had gone on between King James and his queen. That convinced them she was truly a witch, and she was then executed,
Oh my God.
which begs the question, was she really guilty, or did she just want to stop the torture?
By getting
And perhaps she
executed.
had some, yeah, perhaps she couldn't take it anymore, though. I think she was older. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I said,
What?
oh wow.
Yeah. It was rough on them. It was so bad. Um, yeah, I think most people would admit to a lot of things, and sadly, that shit still happens when people are like cross-examined for a really long time and misled and asked leading questions until there's like a forced confession gone on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad. So not all of them were burned alive. Many of them were garroted before burning them at the stake. It was considered more humane. So they, you know, strangle them kind of against the post because a garrote, I always get a little confused. The verb to garrote is to kill someone by strangulation, typically with an iron collar or a length of wire or cord. He had been garroted with a piano wire. Or as a noun, it's a wire, cord, or apparatus used to strangle someone.
Oh, okay.
So they'd be like already tied to the post to be burned at the stake, and then they would like take a wire and strangle them from behind against the post before they burned. Because
Okay.
they were like, well, then at least they're.
Like
So a lot of the time that's what happened instead of being burned
maybe they were
alive.
like
Yeah, I
unconscious
don't
or
know.
something then when they started burning.
Yeah, I believe they said they felt it was more humane to garrote them to death first and then just burn their corpse. I don't.
Glad.
I guess it'd be quicker. I think it is a little bit more humane, but
Glad they're thinking about humane
they're
ways to
still
execute people.
these innocent
Yeah.
people.
These innocent, tortured, assaulted people who are just pointing fingers at each other so that it can stop really. Like
Yeah, there's oftentimes just poor people or not well-liked
yeah.
people. We'll kind of get to this a little bit more. So, when King James of Scotland became the King of England, also, he brought with him his superstitions and beliefs about witches to England. So, he actually wrote a book called Demonology. I believe I read it was the only book about demons written by a monarch.
Oh wow.
So, that's kind of cool. Yeah, he wrote a book called Demonology. It basically boiled down to saying witchcraft is real. And if you don't believe in it, then you're at best a fool, at worst in league with the devil himself. So one man knew James was a witch believer. You know, there's this book he wrote. So he's if not a witch hunter himself, he's at least a believer. So one man accused three women of practicing witchcraft against his daughter and cursing his daughter, but the man was thrown in jail. So that backfired on him. Later, King James's son Charles would bring about the end of the witch trials, but not before hundreds were accused of witchcraft by everyone, including some by their own children.
Awful.
Many, yeah, many were hanged, many were burned. More people were searched roughly for their witches' marks. Many were found, especially on elderly people. The last one I want to talk about was called the Chelmsford Witch Trials. So a man named Matt Hopkins was known as the lead witch hunter in all of England. So after King Charles, James's son, had put a damper on the witch trials and they'd pretty much come to a stop, this guy got a hard on for witches and witch trials and went around the country. He once sent 15 witches to the gallows in one day. He obviously received a nice fee for each witch that he brought to trial. I believe it's the village's
Yeah.
churches that were mostly paying him. And yeah, he believed he was doing God's work. So in Suffolk, England, Hopkins set his sight on an actual man of God, a vicar named John Lowes. He wasn't a very well-liked man, but he was a clergyman after all, so he was generally tolerated by his community until they printed a pamphlet saying they didn't like him, which brought the witch hunter on the scene.
Wow. They printed a
So,
pamphlet saying they didn't like him. I love that.
yeah, that's how they described it, and I was like, that's
Yeah.
rough. So they really did
A
single him out.
published pamphlet in town being like, we don't like you.
I know at first I was like, well, they tolerated him, and then I was like, oh no, wait, then they threw him under the bus. Yeah, yeah. But oh, it's sad though, because then Hopkins tortured him. Like he was an elderly man, and he tortured him with sleep deprivation and a practice called walking, which just involved them forcing him to walk back and forth for hours, never allowed to sit or lay down until he was basically being walked, like being held up because his legs couldn't keep him up anymore, but they kept forcing him to walk, holding him up between two
Oh my
people.
God.
Yeah, like he'd be like falling onto his knees and they would just like pick him back up. It's yeah, Hopkins was determined to break this guy because he Hopkins had never failed to extract a confession before. He always got his confession. Lois was still refusing to confess, which was driving Hopkins mad with rage. In the winter of 1645, he was dragged to Framlingham Castle. He was brought to the moat so that Hopkins could employ another tactic called swimming the witch, which you've probably heard of. It's more famous.
I've heard like
King James had
testing
written,
if people
yeah,
float or not.
that's
Oh,
what
okay.
this one is. Exactly. Exactly. It's written about in demonology by King James. He had recommended it. He asserted that, quote, by accepting the devil, the witch rejected the sacred waters of baptism, and as a result, the water would reject the witch's body, causing he or she to float. If the suspect sank, they were innocent and
Yeah.
likely dead. So this was considered torture and it was illegal, but that didn't stop Hopkins. He was determined to get his confession. So he bound Lowe's and he was attempting to drown him, plunging him over and over into the cold water. He didn't not drown, but he did break. He finally said he was a witch, but he would not admit to having any sort of pact with the devil. He was a man of God and he could not
Yeah.
say that. So the day he went to trial, 90 others were to stand trial the same day. And before he was executed, he read his own last prayers before he died, like his last rites or whatever. I don't know if he was Catholic, but like he read his own
Wow.
prayers. He was badass. Yeah. But they killed him. So locals all over helped Matt Hopkins round up possible witches, throwing everyone and their dog under the bus because they don't like them and they just want to get rid of them. So they just say
Yep.
they're a witch. And at his at its widest, his territory encompassed more than 300 miles. All these little towns paid Hopkins to come and take people to trial. It paid well being a witch hunter
Yeah.
general.
In the Good Omens, they call it Witchfinder General. So he's like, I'm Witchfinder General. And he talks about,
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's
they
really
talk about like getting fees from the town. He's like, yeah, it doesn't pay as well as it used to. Like towns used to, you were like the police, like towns used to give you free stuff and they would pay you to do it. He's like, now you can't get anything. Like,
he's like, look at
yeah,
the
and
state
he's
of
like,
things these days. It used to be so good
yeah,
back in
but this
my
guy
day.
back in his day wasn't even his day because the dude's like 60. Like, and it's like current time. Like, it takes place in like the
Oh,
90s. So it's like, man, it's like, yeah,
okay.
they haven't
Oh,
been
geez.
paid good for 300 years. Like, yeah.
Maybe he's a
Yeah,
witch.
it's pretty funny. The one guy that teams up with him is like, do I have to bring anything, and he's like, bring a pair of scissors, and they just sit there and cut out clips out of newspapers of people that may be witches. Yeah, he's
Scrapbooking.
like, bring a sharp pair of scissors. It's the only weapon you need against a
Nice.
witch, a pair of scissors.
So, fun fact, the parishioners of Vicar John Lowes' church refused to pay for his execution. Even though they made the pamphlet, I would assume they were the same parishioners and villagers that wrote the pamphlet about not liking him. They refused to pay for his execution. So, a different priest, John Gall, heard that Hopkins was coming to his town. Gall decided to act. He saw Hopkins for what he really was, a greedy, sad little man. Gall exposed Hopkins' misdeeds and
Yeah.
Hopkins's forced confessions, by word of mouth. Hopkins fired back. In a pamphlet he called A Discovery of Witches.
Okay.
I got so excited when I heard that it was a real thing. Because I love those books. Anyway, so he called the pamphlet A Discovery of Witches. He prints the accusations against him about his misconduct, torture, and forced confessions. And he prints his denials and responses in the same pamphlet. This wasn't a good idea for him. He staunchly denied everything, downplayed his actions. He even kept in, the accusations of torture, like I said. He thought, after all, if King James approves of it.
Yeah.
But before he could even be brought to justice, one way or another, he died of illness, most likely tuberculosis. And this one is a perfect segue to your segment, because Hopkins, A Discovery of Witches, would be referenced once again in a trial 45 years later, all the way across the ocean in a little town called Salem.
Well, I didn't come across A Discovery of Witches when I was doing it, but I just have have like a quick explanation, because I never really knew why the Salem witch trials started. Before I get to my actual case I covered.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's now that you've heard the European side of it, it's kind of like, well, if people living in America are descendants of all these Europeans, or they're like not descendants of, even at this time. Sorry, it's like literally people that have emigrated. So they brought all these beliefs with them and stuff. Yeah.
Are you ready for the Salem witch trials?
I'm ready.
All right. So, brief history of the Salem witch trials. Very brief. The Salem witch trials occurred in colonial Massachusetts between 1692 and 1693. So, I'll preface this. I thought the Salem witch trials were like a really long ordeal. I did not think it was less than a year long. For how much?
Okay. Maybe that's because of the history of the European ones too.
I'm like, everybody talks about the Salem witch trials as like the end all be all, like witch trials. It seems to be like the go-to, but it was less than a year.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's way more famous, I would say, or at least here in North America, than the European witch trial.
It might be because the number of people that were accused was more than 200. So maybe that's why, like 200 people in 1 year in one town.
Right. It's so concentrated in just Salem, whereas these other ones, like Chelmsford, that was a whole area, or the Berwick ones, that was like a whole region
so it has to be
as well.
Due probably to the amount of people. So more than 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft. They called it the devil's magic, and 20 people in total were executed. I would have expected a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think me too.
Yeah.
Would
So
have
the
thought it was
Salem
higher.
witch trials started due to a number of factors. So the first one can be sourced back that there was a lack of resources after many people were displaced due to the war with France in 1689. So they were just running out of food.
Okay, so a bunch of people, and they arrived to
Yeah.
the Americas after you said
The
the
war
French
with France in
Revolution?
1698. Or
The
1689.
war with France.
1689.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So
Right,
this caused
whatever.
rivalries between families that made their money because of the port of Salem, from like shipping, and then those families that made their livelihood through agriculture and farming. So there was like a huge rivalry that started. So
Funny.
around this time, there
Yeah.
was controversy surrounding a Reverend Samuel Paris, who had become Salem Village's first ordained minister in 1689, and he was disliked because of his rigid ways and greedy nature. So there was a reason to dislike him.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I
they
didn't
did
find
not,
any for my
I
vicar.
guess. Unfortunately, they didn't make a pamphlet about this gentleman, but they probably should have. So the Puritan
Right.
villagers believed all this fighting over the resources in between the families, and then the controversies surrounding Reverend Paris, that this was all the work of the devil. Like that all of these arguments fighting was the
Hmm.
work of the devil.
Of course. If it's bad, it's from the devil.
Yeah,
If it's
there's no in
good,
between.
it was God.
So this all came to a head in
Yeah.
January of 1692 when Reverend Paris's daughter Elizabeth, who was 9 at the time, and his niece Abigail Williams, who was 11, started having fits. So they were screaming, throwing things,
Okay.
they were uttering peculiar sounds and contorting themselves into strange positions. And a local doctor,
So
they were 9 and 11.
teenagers? Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I was a weirdo child. I would
Yeah.
definitely be contorting. I once laid in a baby's cradle and looked up at my mom's friend at her work and said, I used to be silver, but
Oh
now
my
I'm
God.
green.
What does that even mean? That makes no sense.
Normal. I don't know. I was like 9 or
You're a
11.
witch, not a witch.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
Not a witch, not a witch.
A local doctor
Louder,
blamed the
louder.
supernatural.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn, that's supernatural.
Another girl at this time,
Mm.
Anne Putnam, age 11, experienced similar episodes. So, yeah.
Okay, as the two girls.
Yeah. So now we jump
Sisters?
to
Mm.
February 29th, so a month or so later. Under pressure from the magistrates, Jonathan Corwin and John Hawthorne, um, those are the magistrates, the girls blamed 3 women for afflicting them with these fits. Yeah.
They were under pressure.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun,
Pressure.
dun.
The
I
three
had to.
women blamed were Tituba. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. And she was the Paris's Caribbean slave. There was Sarah Good, a homeless
Okay.
beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly, impoverished woman.
Seems like there's a lot of Sarahs that were witches too, or maybe it was just a
I
common
think it
name
might
at
be
that time
just a
as
common
well.
name. So
Yeah.
all 3 of these women were brought before the local magistrates and interrogated for several days, starting on March 1st, 1692. The one woman, Osborne, claimed innocence, as did Sarah Good, but Tituba confessed, "The devil came to me and bid me to serve him." which is never good. Yeah, she
The devil
described
made her do
elaborate
it.
images of black dogs, red cats, yellow birds, and a black man who wanted her to sign his book.
But was the devil wearing
No.
Prada? All right.
Yeah,
Cleared that
we
up.
need to know. So she admitted to the magistrates that she signed the book and said that there were several other witches looking to destroy the Puritans in town. And because of this, all three women were put in jail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Throw them all
So,
in.
with the seeds of paranoia planted, a stream of accusations followed over the next few months, with dozens of people from Salem and other Massachusetts villages were brought in for questioning. So that's my brief
Okay.
history
Next.
on what started the Salem Witch Trials. Two, or I guess the three little girls.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah,
Bringing
right?
the world down.
I was kind of shocked when I found that out. I was like, really? Like, three little girls under 12 years old caused this. Like,
Chaos and order. Chaos is
yeah.
feminine.
Yeah.
We're
So this
awesome.
brings me to my case.
So funny.
And I think I had asked you about it before, but I don't remember if you said you had heard about it or not. It's the Giles Corey 300-year curse. Oh,
No.
okay.
Love a
Yeah.
good curse.
So even though we're talking about the Salem witch trials and it was predominantly women being accused, I'm now going to focus on maybe one of the only guys that was accused.
I think it's interesting hearing about the guys. You don't hear about it. You
Yeah,
hear
this
it's
one was
always
just kind
women.
of interesting, I thought. So Giles Corey was born August of 1611. It's not known when he arrived in North America, but there is evidence that he was living in Salem town as early as 1640. So that would have been when he was in his 30s. So he originally lived in Salem
Right.
town, but later moved to nearby Salem village, now called Danvers, and he was working as a farmer. And
Okay.
there's quite a few entries in court documents as to his behavior, which was not completely good. I would explain it, or I would describe it as he was an asshole. But in those times, any accusation against someone
Oh,
was viewed as an offense against the state, um, which I found funny that they would say it's bad to accuse people of things because that's an offense against the state, but let's accuse people of witchcraft.
what?
Yeah.
So what? Okay. Just don't accuse
Yeah,
them of any
right?
other
Let's
crime.
believe 9-year olds when they point fingers at old ladies, but yeah.
Mm. We don't really get science. Let's still blame witchcraft because we can't blame
Right?
everything on the gods anymore.
So Giles Corey was
Oh
a
no.
prosperous landowning farmer in Salem, and he had been married 3 times. He is believed to have married his first wife, Margaret, in England. Margaret was the mother of his eldest 4 children, Martha, Margaret, Deliverance, and Elizabeth. One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, exactly. Where's Constance, Prudence, and Chastity?
His second wife was Mary Bright, and they were married on April 11th, 1664, when Corey was 53 years old. And together they had a, I don't
What
know.
happened to the first one? She did.
Yeah. So Corey was
Okay,
53
probably
years
did.
old, and they had a son named John. So, story picks up in
Okay.
1676. Corey is 65, and he is brought to trial in Essex County, Massachusetts, for allegedly beating to death one of his indentured farm workers. as I mentioned, this man was an ass.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, and at least he's getting brought to trial for something like that because those people
Yeah.
are
Well,
practically slaves.
he pretty well is a slave. He's indentured. That's
Hmm.
pretty.
Yeah, which I think most of the time that means they get a little bit of money, but it might just even be like your house and board, and you're
Yeah.
still, yeah, you're like treated like, well, if they treat their slaves good, then you're
Yeah.
treated good. But yeah,
So
yeah,
he was a
exactly.
gentleman named Jacob
Okay.
Goodale. It's also been spelled Goodell or Goodall, so I'm not sure. Yeah. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's
Jane
either
Goodall.
like it's Goodale, and then it's also spelled Dell or Dall.
Several other
So
other
he is the son of
variations.
Robert
Gotcha.
and Catherine Goodale and brother to Isaac Goodale. According to witnesses, Corey had severely beaten Jacob Goodale with a stick after he allegedly was caught stealing apples from Corey's brother-in-law. And though Corey eventually sent him to receive medical attention, 10 days later, Goodale died shortly after. You know, yeah.
What?
So,
That kind of reminds me
yeah,
of my case a little with the vicar, or sorry, because people being dying before they can
yeah.
get the result.
So, since corporal punishment was
Yeah.
permitted against indentured servants, Corey was exempt from the charge of murder and instead was charged with using unreasonable force. Yeah, numerous witnesses and
Oh,
eyewitnesses testified against Corey, as well as a local coroner, and he was found guilty and fined. So,
sorry. He being
yeah,
not the
Corey.
coroner, the other guy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, sorry. I think Corey coroner. I think I got a
So the
little. All right,
local
gotcha. Okay.
coroner testified against him as an eyewitness. So
Right. Right. Right.
Mary
Right. Okay.
Bright, Corey's second
Got it.
wife, died in 1684, and later Corey married his third wife, who's the one, quote unquote, we care about as pertaining to these witch trials. And her name was Martha Rich. Martha was
Gotcha.
admitted to the church at Salem Village, where Giles had lived. At the time of the witch trials, Corey was 80 years old and living with Martha in the southwest corner of Salem Village in what is now Peabody. Yeah, keep that in mind.
80. Wow.
Yeah, in the
Hundreds
end of the
even.
1600s, this dude is 80. Yeah.
Wow. He probably looks 100.
So Martha, yeah. Oh
He
my
probably has
gosh,
one tooth.
probably. So
Wasn't there a character in Game of Thrones called
I
One
don't
Tooth? Sorry.
remember.
Anyway, something
So
like that.
Martha Corey was arrested for witchcraft. I don't really know who accused her or how that came about, but she was accused of witchcraft on March 19th, 1692. And Corey was so swept up by the trials that he initially believed the accusations against his wife and even testified against her until he himself was arrested based on the same charge on April 18th, a month later, along with Mary Warren, Abigail Hobbs, and Bridget Bishop.
How does that work? Also, Bridget Bishop, they do use her
Oh,
name
okay.
in A Discovery of Witches. Just saying. But
Yeah.
what the hell? So he can
Yeah,
give testimony against
now he's
her,
a
but then
warlock or a wizard. They
they,
call him a wizard.
did they? Oh, okay. But it's like I'm assuming they didn't find any evidence in the same way that nowadays
No.
we'd be required to
Back
have
then you just point
evidence,
a finger, and
or
that's good enough.
yeah. 'Cause, yeah, 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 'cause, Yeah.
Yeah.
Trial
So the
by
following
fire.
day, all these individuals were examined by authorities along with Abigail Hobbs, accusing Giles of being a wizard. Corey denied the accusations and refused to plead either guilty or not guilty. So he was sentenced to prison and subsequently arraigned at the September sitting of the court. So I have a quote from the deposition in 1692 of Mercy Lewis versus Giles Corey.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it says so this will be
Okay,
old
I'm here
timey
for it.
and will not make sense. I read it like 15 times and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. They contradict themselves halfway through the paragraph. Like, so it says, I saw the
Nice.
apparition of Giles Corey come and afflict me, urging me to write in his book. And so he continued most dreadfully to hurt me, by times beating me and almost breaking my back till the day of his examination, being the 19th of April. And then also during the time of his examination, he did afflict and torture me most grievously, and also several times since, urging me vehemently to write in his book. And I verily believe in my heart that Giles Corey is a dreadful wizard, and for since he has been in prison, he or his appearance has come and most grievously tormented me. Yeah, so I just like that
Most grievously.
they're stating
Oh, foul
that
language.
until he was arrested, he was attacking me. And then, well, so only up until, but then they go on to say, and while he was being interrogated, he was attacking me. But also after, don't forget about after. Like,
Yeah. He was
yeah,
just, it was a lot. It was a blur. Yeah. All I got out of that was grievous and dreadful, and she
yeah.
feels dreadful and
And verily,
grieved.
I verily believe in my heart.
We get
It's great. Yeah,
Oh, it's a whole mood, lady.
yeah.
All right. That sucks though. Not to less of her light of her
So again, in this
pain
court,
too
Corey
much.
refused to plead either guilty or not guilty to being now a wizard. According to the law at the time, a person who refused to plead couldn't be tried. And to avoid people cheating justice, the legal remedy for refusing a plea was a strong and harsh punishment. In this process, prisoners were stripped naked and heavy boards were laid upon their bodies, and then rocks or boulders were laid upon the planks of wood. And this was
Oh.
called being pressed. Yeah. So,
Ooh. If it was just the rocks,
yeah,
then you could
if they're a
call it a
little
fancy
warm,
spa
not
treatment.
cold,
But the boards,
wrap you in some seaweed
yeah,
first.
the boards, not good. Yeah, I don't want to be pressed until I make a human
Yeah,
wine juice.
yeah. Just
I
gonna
don't want
say,
to be
I don't
pressed
want to
like
be
a
stomped on
grape.
like a grape. So another quote
Yeah.
from the court
Ugh.
is he was remanded to the prison from whence he came and put into a low dark chamber, and
No.
there be laid on his back on the bare floor naked, unless when decency forbids that there be placed upon his body as great as weight as he could bear and more, that he hath no sustenance save only for the first day, 3 morsels of the worst bread, and the second day 3 draughts of standing water, that should be alternately his daily diet till he dead or till he answered. Yeah, like I said, I'll read it,
What?
and it sounds weird. It won't make sense.
Well, the first part just sounded like a description of someone being thrown in the hole in prison. I was picturing like I just saw a picture of Christopher Maloney being thrown in the hole on Oz because well, it was basically a list of pictures of Christopher
Yeah,
Maloney's butt. You know, the guy from Law and Order SVU. So the first part sounds like being thrown in the hole. It's cold, you're naked, you're not covered. The bread and water, like
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that's
this like
fun.
what happens is they put you like they lay you on the floor, and then they put the boards on top of you, and then they put the rocks and boulders on there. So you're naked, like, in between this rock sandwich, I guess. Um, unless, like, because of decency,
Gross. Yeah.
because you're naked, like, they have to put something over you. Yeah. Yeah.
Other than the board.
Yeah. So,
Oh. Okay, got it.
because of his refusal to
Sorry, I was like,
plead,
what?
on September 17th, Corey was subjected to the procedure of being pressed by Sheriff George Corwin, but he was strong in his refusal to plead, nor did he cry out in pain as rocks were placed on the boards. So keep in mind, this dude is 80.
Wow.
Let's not forget that. So after 2
Right.
days, Corey was asked 3 times to enter a plea, but each time he replied, "More weight," and the sheriff complied. Occasionally, the Sheriff Corwin would even stand on top of the stones himself to add more weight.
Wow.
Yeah, so Robert Califf,
Holy
who was a
crap.
witness along with other townsfolk, later said in the pressing of Giles Corey's tongue was pressed out of his mouth, like because of the weight, it would force his tongue out. And the sheriff, pardon?
Oh, like a cartoon.
Yeah, and the sheriff
Like a
with his
cartoon
cane would like
almost.
shove it back, like push it back in his mouth. Yeah. So there, yeah,
Oh.
sounds awful. There
Jeez.
are several accounts of Corey's last words.
Mm-hmm.
The most commonly told one is that he repeated his request for more weight, but it's also have been said to be just more rocks. But another source has it, of course, as "Damn you, I curse you in Salem." And
Ooh.
yeah, Giles
That sounds
Corey died on
more like a movie.
what?
Both, yeah. It's both. Either way, he's like a badass, being like, I refuse to
Yeah.
say anything, but basically
So
like, fuck
Corey
you.
died on September 19th, 1692, after 2 days of being pressed at the age of 81. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Right. I forgot he was like 80
So it was
at the beginning of the
unusual for
story.
people to refuse to plead, and
Wow.
extremely rare to find reports of people who have been able to endure this painful form of death in silence. And since Corey refused to plead, he died in full possession of his estate, which would otherwise have been forfeited to the government. Instead, it passed on to his 2 sons-in-law in accordance to
Oh,
his will. So even though we're sad about his death, keep in mind
wow.
he beat somebody to death with a stick. Yeah, don't forget about that.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
don't feel too bad for this dude getting pressed like a grape. I don't, because, he had it coming. Yeah, you can
All
feel
right. We can feel bad.
medium. Don't feel too bad.
Like you said in my hotel
Yeah,
case, where you're like, I don't know if I should
that's why
feel bad yet.
that's why I started with him
Well, go
beating
ahead.
somebody
Go ahead.
to death instead of him being pressed to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot
So
about that.
Corey's wife, Martha, was hanged 3 days later on September 22nd, 1692. The confusing thing I found about this, so I found out about this case through it being like put on Mysteries at the Museum, because there's a museum that has a diorama of him being pressed as an exhibit at their Salem Museum. Uh, and in that, and in the episode, and
Dark.
even the description of that episode, Mysteries at the Museum, they said that Giles Corey was the last person executed in the Salem witch trials, yet his wife was hung 3 days after him. So, yeah,
Oh,
I just wanted
Yes,
to
he
have
doesn't
that
count.
little issue in our podcast with the History Channel.
Hmm. Or as they call it on the Gravity Falls
Yeah.
show, they used to be about History Channel.
So Giles Corey's wife
Oh.
Martha had a son from a previous marriage named Thomas, and he showed up as a petitioner for loss and damages resulting from his mother being executed illegally during the witch trials. And he was awarded £50 on June 29th, 1723, which didn't sound like a lot to me. So I decided to Google with inflation and conversion to Canadian dollars what that would be today. That would be approximately
Mm-hmm.
$20,000. That's, yeah, that's pretty
See a lot.
good considering how their legal system like worked in 16 or in 1723. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was
Made
actually
off
pretty
okay
common
then.
for
Made out
like
all
families and everything to like petition the government for loss and damages and to be awarded money. That wasn't like an outlier. Like it was very common. Yeah. So in 1710,
right.
Corey's
Okay,
daughter
cool.
Elizabeth and her husband John Moulton filed a lawsuit seeking damages from Sheriff Corwin. And despite Corey's efforts to protect his estate by refusing to plead, Sheriff Corwin had extorted Corey's heirs for money. In Elizabeth's estate, or in Elizabeth's statement to the court, it read, "After our father's death, the sheriff threatened to seize our family's estate, and for fear of that, we complied with him and paid him £11 6 shillings in money." So that would probably be like $5,000.
Oh, what is that? Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like a tenth of what they got.
They got 50
They got
pounds
50
and
bucks?
they had to give the sheriff £11.
Oh, pounds. Okay, yeah, so it's like yeah, that's like a
Yeah,
they
pretty
had to give
much.
him like a fifth. Right. I'm great at math.
Yeah.
But yes, yes, that's a lot. That's a big chunk of what they
Yeah. So the gruesome
were
and
awarded.
public nature of Corey's death,
Good.
it may have caused residents of Salem to rethink their support for the witch trials. Um, and Corey was absolved of the crime of being a wizard in 1712, although Martha was not absolved. So, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I can feel
poor
bad for
Martha.
Martha.
Martha a break.
All right.
Free
So,
Martha.
according to local legend, the apparition of Giles Corey appears and walks his graveyard each time a disaster is about to strike Salem, which is kind of cool. So,
Oh,
yeah, notably, he was said to have
he
appeared
wanders
the
the
night before the
graveyard.
Great
Nice.
Salem Fire of 1914 that has destroyed 1,376 buildings and made over 18,000 people homeless or jobless in Salem. And even stranger, the fire actually started near the area
Wow.
of Gallows Hill and Proctor's Ledge, where Corey's wife Martha and 18 other people were hanged for witchcraft. And it started there before it eventually spread and destroyed much of the town. Yeah.
Much of the
So,
town.
as
That's
well
not
as
good.
that, the position of sheriff in Essex County has also said to have suffered from the curse of Giles Corey, as the holders of that office since George Corwin, the
Oh,
sheriff that executed him, had either died or resigned as a result of heart or blood ailments. 4 years after Corey's death, Sheriff Corwin suddenly died of a heart attack at just 30 years old. Yeah. So I don't know how common.
oof,
Yeah, I don't know if it was more or less
that's
common
young.
in like the late 1600s as it would necessarily be perceived now, but Yeah, it's still really young to die. Yeah,
Yes, still
but
uncommon for
keep
a
in
person
mind
that
that
young, I
at
would think.
like
Hmm.
what? So Sheriff Corwin was 26 when he had this 80-year-old man pressed to death, which also sucks. Kid was probably just on a power trip.
Right.
Getting to be sheriff at 26.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, because I mean, it depends how stressful you're. Yeah. And that could be a stressful job. That could lead to, I don't know,
yeah.
maybe stress.
So
Stress could
local
contribute to
legends
the heart
suggest that Corey
conditions.
not only cursed Corwin, but every Salem sheriff since 1692. So, yeah, in 1978,
Wow. That's
um,
cool.
the ghost of Corey materialized before local sheriff Robert Cahill suffered sudden ailments. Cahill looked into the history of the sheriff's office and described in the book Cursed in New England. I don't know if this is his book or not. I can't remember if it was or not. But in the book Cursed in New England, about 300 years
Hmm.
later, in 1978, Robert Cahill, while in office, suffered a rare blood disease, a heart attack, and a stroke in 1 year. So, yeah, doctors could not find the cause of his afflictions,
Holy
and he was
crap.
forced to retire as sheriff of Essex County and as master and keeper of the jail. That's a great. Yeah. Today he
Wow.
lives
Yeah,
in
much better
Florida.
than
Don't know
warden.
why that's in there, but why not? Mr. Cahill, yeah, Mr. Cahill notes that the sheriff
Okay, so
before
he
him also
survived.
contracted a serious blood
Okay.
ailment while in office, and it forced him to retire. He, in turn, so the gentleman that was there before him got a blood ailment, was forced to retire. The guy that worked there before that gentleman had inherited the post from his father after the elder man had died of a heart attack while serving as sheriff. The previous sheriff had suffered heart problems as well, and so have all the others as far back as I could trace, he says. And the two men who have followed me, so since he had to leave and resign in 1978, the two men that have followed me have had an awful lot of legal trouble.
Hmm.
I didn't get more into that. Yeah. So the
Oh, their
curse
hearts are
was said to have been
okay.
broken when the sheriff's office was moved from Salem to Middleton, so that's outside of the city limits, in 1991. And since the move, yeah, since the move, no
Wow.
sheriffs have been
That's a
diagnosed
long,
with any heart
yep.
conditions or blood
Time.
ailments. So, yeah.
Wow. It's like someone with blood magic.
Yeah.
Mm.
So in
Crazy.
1953, Cor- Giles Corey was featured as a major character in Arthur Miller's play The Crucible, in which he is depicted as a violent and quarrelsome man. Yeah, two other plays were also written exclusively
Oh.
about Giles Corey during the 19th century. One of them is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's 1868 play titled Giles Corey of Salem Farmers, or of Salem Farms, and the other is Mary E. Wilkins Freeman's 1893 play titled Giles Corey Yeo Man. I don't, yeah, it's just Yeoman.
Yeezy
Yeo
man.
Man.
No.
I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know
Both
what that
plays,
means.
and this is what I didn't like.
All right.
Both plays
Cool,
depict
cool.
Corey as a tough old man willing to sacrifice his life in protest against the unfair actions of the court. Which, no.
Um,
Yeah, right?
that's one way to put a
Yeah.
spin on it.
Um,
Yeah. It's like when you know something happened and you read about it and you're like,
yeah, we're like,
oh,
he
that
beat a
article
man to
was
death.
one way to look at it.
Like,
Yeah.
meh. Yeah, he's not a tough
Yeah.
man
Let's
willing to
gloss over
sacrifice his
that.
life. Like, you don't know if that's what he was like or not. 200
Yeah.
years later.
He was
Yeah, at 80.
he was clearly stubborn as fuck.
So, yeah. So, as I
So a
mentioned,
lot of
the Curse of Giles Corey is
Scottish
also
people.
covered in Mysteries at the Museum in episode 1 of season 22, which is one of my favorite shows. I love that show. And it features the Salem Witch Trial Museum and their diorama of the
Okay.
execution of Giles Corey. Yeah, it's like life-sized. It's crazy.
Love a good diorama.
Yeah. So Corey is believed to have died in the field
Oh,
adjacent to the prison that held him
great.
in what later became Howard Street Cemetery in Salem, which opened in 1801. His his exact grave location in the cemetery is unmarked and unknown. Giles Corey Memorial marker is located at the Salem Witch Trials Memorial in Salem, Massachusetts. One more time. Giles and Martha Corey also have 2 memorial markers at their former farm near Crystal Lake in Peabody.
Crystal Lake.
And that's the end of
Oh,
my
that's a
case.
different horror story for another day. No. Michael. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I like that. That's yeah, that's not very like well known. That's not what I think of when I think of Salem witch trials. I think of the little
Yeah.
girls that made the accusation.
We
That's
kind
the
of have
most
to
famous.
cover all
But
of that
yeah,
to get to like this
the
actual
curse
like
is so
documented 300-year-old curse.
well, hopefully everybody learned a little something and it was a little bit, you know, different
Yeah,
take on witches than your
for sure.
typical same old. Yeah, that's awesome. I I wondered, did we say at the top when we were talking about our Patreon episode what it was about? Did we remind everybody again? I can't remember. Or did we just say our Patreon episode is dropping with episode 4?
I don't remember mentioning it.
Because if we didn't, I will just
Yeah,
say that it's government secret effing project, which is a
yeah.
really cool thing to go down the rabbit hole on, I think. So I think you guys will really like it.
And
I
it's
think it'll be worth your
gonna be a
while.
long one.
Yeah. And any Patreon support, we're gonna, yeah. And just a reminder, any Patreon support, we're gonna put money back
Yeah,
into the podcast to, keep improving it for you guys. So yeah, we
yeah.
hope you'll join our Illuminati.
So
Ting.
our
And then
episode
we need to do
after
another
this
cryptid.
one
So,
is
oh yeah, actually,
going to be Russian true crime because we already did Canadian true crime. So we're thinking about doing like an international, like
yes,
around
we
the world true crime
did.
thing where we like maybe like once a month or so, like pick a country and pick a couple cases from there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and then we can, yeah, when we learn maybe a little bit about the country along the way. And I know
Yeah.
Ressa, my sister's going to be excited that we're doing Russian one because
Oh,
she
that's cool.
knows how to speak a little bit of Russian. And thank you for listening. We appreciate it. We appreciate you, all your
Yes.
support. Please rate and review if you have a moment. It
All
would really
right.
help us out. All
Yes.
right.
Bye bye.
Catch you next time.
This has been Castles and Cryptids. You can listen to our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, and Pocket Casts. Our episodes are also uploaded to our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget to check out our Patreon page to view all of our tiers. Become a Patreon supporter today to unlock monthly bonus episodes and behind-the-scenes content. You can also take our poll and let us know what kind of bonus content you'd like to see in the future. On our website, you can listen to all of our episodes, as well as view pictures for each of our segments. Our music is by Kobe Off Air. Thanks for listening.